What's up, everyone? Welcome to the This Day in Philly Sports History Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament Selection Show. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am for this tournament. I've been looking forward to this for a couple months now. Been working with the selection committee to try to get everybody seated where they need to go. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on who I overseeded, underseeded, completely forgot about, who got snubbed, just like the regular NCAA tournament. Just a quick background on this. There will be 64 Philly sports-related nicknames. I have them broken down into 4 regions: the Cheesesteak, the Ben Franklin, the Schuylkill, and the Balboa. It kicks off this Monday on This Day in Philly Sports History, available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. We will have 2 matchups a day through July 25th, which will be the championship. And it's up to you, the listeners of the podcast, to vote for those winners of the 2 matchups per day. How you vote, what you want to do, what you base it on, that is completely up to you. But once we get to the Final Four, the Schuylkill bracket will play the Ben Franklin. The Cheesesteak will play the Balboa. And I cannot wait. So a little background on this. I thought it'd be a cool idea and something to do. We did the Lovable Loser tournament last year over the summer. And basically, the NBA, NHL are winding down. And it's really just the Phillies until Eagles training camp. So it's just a little something to break up the monotony of the summer. And I did not purposely mean to do a little Will Smith in there. However, great nickname, the Fresh Prince. But just to break it up and give us something to look forward to. So I started off and I just made a list of all the nicknames I could come up with. Fictional, non-fictional, teams, players. I even went so far, I debated putting some of the groups that used to sit in the vet and early days of Citizens Bank Park, like the Duck Pond and Sal's Pals. Ultimately, I made a list of 76. Did not do that on purpose for Philly. Just, it was meant to be. It was written in the stars. But then I whittled it down to 64 and then started to rank them and play it around. Like I had a color-coded spreadsheet where I was moving things around. Some of the things I took into consideration, obviously, how good is the nickname? There's some nicknames that are obviously better than others. The players' performance on the field and how good of a player they were certainly played a role into it. There's some great nicknames for some players who weren't so good and vice versa. So I kind of took some liberties and evened that out a little bit. I did not go fictional. So the Italian Stallion, despite the fact it's one of my favorite Philly nicknames, is not in there. Plays on names were... It was one of those things that depended on the player. You had guys like J-Roll, Pat the Bat, Schmitty, and the ability sometimes outweighed the name and anything. There are no players with just initials. So JR, teams like or players like that. Sorry, I just initials are too easy. Anybody can have their initials as their nickname. But again, it's players and teams, and there are 4 players that are special in this tournament who have multiple nicknames, who are they're known equally by those nicknames. We'll go over them. You'll see them when I release the brackets. I'm still up in the air on how I want to handle that, whether I'm going to choose one or just have that be sort of like this or that and let you guys decide from there. Your vote, though, like I mentioned earlier, you can do whatever you want. If you really like this player and they're a 16 seed and you think they should win, go for it. If you want to base it off some of the criteria I did, go for it. It's all to have fun, but this is the Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament. You can vote any way you can, but only one vote per platform, so you can't. I don't think any of the sites will allow you to do it. So if you vote on Twitter, that's the only one, but then you can go and vote. If you follow me on Facebook, you can always call or text the Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. If you need to, you can text me. If you have my cell phone number, send smoke signals, whatever you need to do, get your vote in. And spread the word. Like, that's the big thing. Let's get this thing growing and let's get a lot of people involved. And obviously, selfishly, I'm hoping that this is gonna help grow the podcast. But at the same time, this is gonna be a lot of fun. When I say I'm looking forward to this, it is not an understatement at all. I'll go into the details of the player, the history of the nickname, and all of that good stuff during all first round matchups. And then once we get into the second round and beyond, I won't go into some details, but just kind of remind you the important pieces of the player's nickname. All right, without all of that being said, it is time to unveil the number one seeds for the nickname tournament. And this was difficult. I had about 6 that were in contention, but once I broke it down and really looked at it, I felt these were the 4 best nicknames in Philadelphia sports, and then I had to figure out how to kind of seed them 1 through 4. So without further ado, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament is out of the cheesesteak region, and that is Chocolate Thunder. Yes, Darryl Dawkins. He was breaking backboards before it was cool. And I think with this, he was a solid player. He played in 3 NBA finals with the Sixers. But I think he embodied this nickname. Even after he retired, he was still involved. He lived in Allentown. And I just feel like he embodied this. And the era he played in also played a role into this because he grew up in the 70s. So it was a lot of, I'm a big fan of 70s soul and funk music. And I just feel like that era of the NBA, Chocolate Thunder, the way he played, to me, it's there. It's the number 1 overall seed Philly nickname. All right. The other number 1 seeds, though. And this one almost was the number 1 seed. I couldn't decide. And I think, like I said, with Darryl Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder, I think because of the era he played in, that 70s funk, I think it just fit more. So that's why that's number 1 overall seed. But the other number 1 seed out of the Schuylkill region is Concrete Charlie. Yes, Chuck Bednarik, another nickname that just embodied who he was as a player. 2-way player, won an NFL championship with the Eagles in 1960. One of the best in Eagles history. And, I mean, if you ever saw him before he passed away, he would always show you his pinky stuck the other way. And he just embodied this nickname, Concrete Charlie. He is the number 1 seed in the Schuylkill region. Out of the Ben Franklin region, we have the Broad Street Bullies. It's still one of the best nicknames I feel for a team, and I think it just embodied what those Flyers teams were all about. The best era in Flyers hockey for obvious reasons, and I would love to kind of go back to that style of play. But the Broad Street Bullies are the number 1 seed out of the Ben Franklin region. And then our final number 1 seed out of the Balboa region, the Executioner. I think this is the perfect nickname for a boxer. And if you've ever seen Bernard Hopkins fight, I had the privilege to see him when he was up in Reading. I think it was Charlie Daniels he fought. It was like that double header, double main event between him and then Roy Jones fought out in LA, I believe. But the Executioner, and this, to me, the whole entrance and ensemble of Bernard Hopkins for this, really just, he bought into it. When he was wearing the hood, the mask, he'd come out with his X up. Just what a great name for a boxer. Philly's a blue-collar boxing town, and Bernard Hopkins is the best boxer to come out of Philly. Apologies to all of you Joe Frazier guys out there, but Bernard Hopkins, I feel, is the best boxer, accomplished the most, and has the greatest nickname in Philly boxing history in the Executioner. And just like I said, his whole persona on fight day, just coming out with the mask on, the Executioner hood, top notch. So those are our number 1 seeds. Chocolate Thunder is the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. You got the Broad Street Bullies out of the Ben Franklin, Concrete Charlie out of the Schuylkill, and the Executioner out of the Balboa regions. So before I give you the brackets, we're going to do this just like they do the selection show. The last four got nicknames in the tournament. Speedy Morris was the last guy in, and that's because I wanted to give some love to the college. There's a great nickname or story about this nickname, about the origins. Cannot wait to go into that. But Speedy Morris was the last guy in, followed by Bird Dog, the Owl without a vowel, and yes, there definitely was a little bit of temple favoritism by the selection committee on this one. Once I let Speedy Morris in, I had to let the Owl without a vowel in. It's my list, so yes, temple favoritism, as you can see behind me. And the Fog, those were their last four in. So Speedy Morris, Bird Dog, the Owl without a vowel, and the Fog were the last four into the tournament. That means the last four out. And these three I had in until the very, very last minute. First four out, the Fightins. This is a nickname that is growing on me. More and more people are using this, and this is more of a more recent nickname for the Phillies. Even in Reading, they're the Reading Fightin' Phils. It's growing on me, but not quite enough to get into that field of 16. Then we have the Whiz Kids. Again, it's a very, very cool name. They didn't win. Had they won the World Series, I bet this would have made the tournament. But the Whiz Kids were one of the first four out just because it's a cool name, but not one of the top 64. They're like 66. And then you had the Wheeze Kids, which is the obvious knockoff play off of the Whiz Kids. And just like the 1950 Whiz Kids, if that team won in 83, we're having a different conversation now. But I couldn't put the Whiz Kids in and not the Wheeze Kids or vice versa. So they both, their RPI just was not good enough to get into the tournament. And the next for the first four out is Toast. And while this was a funny nickname, not even sure if Izell Jenkins knows that his nickname was Toast. It was a negative nickname, so that certainly hurt him. But Toast, as a nickname for a cornerback, is pretty funny. But I wanted to keep it positive, so that's why Toast was out. But Toast was close to coming into the tournament as well. But I think the fact that does anybody know out there? If you know if Izell Jenkins knew his nickname was Toast, let me know because I would love to know. All right, and then the next four out, Charlie Hustle. Wasn't his nickname in Philly. He was nicknamed that before he came to Philly, and he had a limited era here in Philly. Yes, Pete Rose helped us get over the hump and win the World Series, just like Moses Malone got the Sixers over. But Charlie Hustle wasn't a Philly name. He had that before he came here, so that definitely played against Pete Rose. And then JR and BG, their initials, and Roenick was good. I love Brandon Graham. It killed me to not have Brandon Graham in there. But come on, it's just initials. Can't make the ultimate nickname tournament. They would have gotten knocked out in the first round. JR and BG, come on now. And the last guy on the next four out is Doc. And yes, Roy Halladay was great, spectacular. For a short amount of time, one of the best pitchers in Phillies history. But in my opinion, there's only room for one doctor in this tournament. Stay tuned for that. All right, let's unveil the cheesesteak region. So there you go with the cheesesteak region. Lots of intriguing matchups in this one. And that's where Chocolate Thunder is the number one overall seed. They'll take on the Fog. I'm not going to go through each and every one with you, but some of the interesting things here for the cheesesteak region, the 5-12 matchup to me is an intriguing matchup between two Philly legends, the Secretary of Defense versus Dutch. I think that one could go either way, so that's going to be a tough matchup for both Gary Maddox and Darren Dalton. The 8-9 seed, we got a little bit, or 8-9 game, we have a little bit of sunlight, so to speak, but Shady versus Lights Out. That's another intriguing matchup. LaShawn McCoy versus Brad Lidge. The 6-11 matchup. Looking forward to this one, and there's one of our guys with multiple nicknames that I just wasn't sure which way to go with it. You have The Ultimate Weapon, Randall Cunningham, my boy, against the Polish Rifle, but he's probably more well-known now as Jaws. These guys actually happen to be teammates as well. Not sure which way I'm going to go with Jaworski. Jaws is a cool name, but to me, the Polish Rifle is just a very, very good name. The Answer, our 3 seed here in the cheesesteak region, it's going to have a tough road to the Final Four. One of the better nicknames in Philly sports, but just a brutal stretch. Shouldn't have any problem with Home Run Baker, but then could run into problems with whichever Eagles quarterback wins the 6-11 matchup. Then you got Sarge, but then the Legion of Doom is kind of looming out there. And this one, I love the Legion of Doom as a name. Huge WWE guy, so the Road Warriors were one of my favorite tag teams. Love the Legion of Doom, so it's going to be hard for the Answer to make it to the finals, but that is entirely up to you. We do have a potential matchup of Sixers big men here in the cheesesteak region between Daryl Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder, and the Round Mound of Rebound there, the 1 versus 4 seed. That could be an intriguing matchup too, because I bet there's a lot of Barkley fans out there that would say, hey, I'm voting for Charles. But we'll see. June 25th, the tournament gets underway. All right, let's unveil the bracket for the Ben Franklin region. And this possibly could be the easiest region of the 4. And it's just, again, luck of the draw. And there's a lot of good players in there, but the Broad Street Bullies could have a cakewalk to the regional final. Same way with the Boston Strangler and, excuse me, Andrew Toney. That should be what the final matchup is. But you look at the number 3 seed Big Piece. I love that name for Ryan Howard, and the Big Piece could get hot and pull off the upsets. The 5-12 matchup here is another, and I purposely didn't do the 5-12 matchups like this on purpose, but the 5-12 matchup is a battle of ex-Phillies teammates and world champions, and another one of our guys with 2 nicknames, Schmitty, but Michael Jack. Harry Callis sort of started calling Mike Schmidt Michael Jack. I did put Schmitty down a little bit as far as nickname, again, because of the name. Like Schmitty, every single person with the last name Schmidt is Smitty or Schmitty, so he definitely lost points, but because he's Mike Schmidt, that definitely helped his seeding out there. But the Bull is just a solid name, and Greg Luzinski is one of those guys who is still around, Bull's Barbecue, so that is an intriguing matchup that Greg Luzinski could be on upset alert for this one. Speaking of upset alert, I do think that the number 4 seed World Be Free could be upset by B West, depending on who votes and what people are thinking then. World Be Free, I think, gets a lot of credit because he officially changed and legally changed his name to World Be Free, which is pretty cool. But the 6 seed Smokin' Joe is a sleeper in this tournament, but he has a tough matchup against Harry the K, and a lot of sentimental folks might go with Harry the K versus Smokin' Joe, but Smokin' Joe could give the Boston Strangler a lot of fits if they end up going that far. So that is the Ben Franklin region. Like I said, probably the weakest region of the 4, but that happens sometimes. It's the luck of the draw. Now we go from the weakest region to possibly the toughest region, and there's a lot of heavy hitters in the Schuylkill region, both literally and figuratively. The number 2 seed Dr. J here may have the toughest path because that first round matchup against the Camden Buzzsaw is definitely going to be a tough one, but then he's got to go against either Tug or Dirty Waters, Chooch, Puddinhead, The Process. It's going to be a tough matchup for Dr. J, and even if he gets to the finals, does he have enough left? But I'm looking for this one. The Camden Buzzsaw could be a a tough matchup for Dr. J. We also, again, have another interesting 12-5 matchup. J-Roll versus Wilt. Will the fact that Wilt has two nicknames hurt him? I should have mentioned the other person with two nicknames was Lenny Dykstra, Nails or the Dude. Nails was one of those names he came in with. He was more the dude in Philly. But looking back at that 5-12 matchup, J-Roll I could certainly see pulling off the upset. And again, J-Roll lost some ground because it's a playoff of his name. It's sort of one of those things. Just a personal preference of mine. You may disagree, and I'm sure a lot of you will. And the other thing with Wilt Chamberlain, the fact that he was known as the Stilt as well as the Big Dipper, and we'll get more into this when the matchup comes, he didn't really enjoy the Stilt, so that might play a role against him as well. The number 8-9 seed, Bundy versus Hollywood, is definitely a contrast of styles. Anxious to see how this one worked out. You have a hard-hitting hockey player versus Cole Hamels, so that could go a lot of ways. And then the third seed, Chooch, has an intriguing matchup with either, like I said, either Joel with the process or Puddinhead, and I could see that one going either way. But I think if Chooch makes it past there, he should be able to get there and play either Dr. J or the winner of the Dirty Waters or Dirty Waters Tug, whoever happens to win that matchup. But the process versus Puddinhead matchup is going to be hard for Chooch, but I think if anyone can do it, it's Chooch. All right, and then finally, our last region, which is another strong region, making a strong case for the strongest region in the tournament. That is the Balboa region. Many people are saying the champion could come out of this one. The Executioner is such a strong name. It's an intriguing second round or Sweet 16 matchup that could happen. The Executioner versus Weapon X. Looking forward to that. Eagles, the 12 seed against Weapon X, was one of those names that had a strong showing late. I did not have them in the tournament, and then in doing some research and things like that, I kind of thought, okay, enough people say it, including my own mom. Hi, Mom. Love you. That I figured I would put the Eagles in there. And the 12 seed, I think, is a good spot for them because so many people do use that. You know, I work with Philly Goat. He has a lot of Eagles stuff. So that's why they're in the tournament. But it's a good matchup, 12-5. Then Lefty versus the chairman of the boards is our 6-11 matchup. That's another tough one. The 6-11 matchups in all four brackets are kind of tough. So I think Lefty could possibly pull off the upset, but you can never discount Moses Malone. So we'll see how that one plays out. And then the Flying Hawaiian possibly going against Gang Green is a very, very intriguing matchup. If the Gang Green can knock off Flying Hawaiian, that could be a sleeper pick and one of our higher seeds to possibly make it to the Final Four. And the Minister Defense, I think, is the dark horse in this region. I think the love for Reggie. I was listening all when WIP was doing their Mount Rushmore week, and a lot of people say Reggie's not really an Eagle, and not sure where they get that from, but I think the Minister Defense could certainly get hot and pull off the Final Four berth out of the Balboa region. All right, so there are our four regions. Tell me what you think. I'm ready for it. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are upset. Who did I overseed? Who did I underseed? Who did I leave out? Who should be in? Give me your Final Four predictions. I think this is going to be a very, very intriguing, interesting tournament that it's pretty much wide open. There's so many great nicknames in Philly, and I will say it was hard to choose and pick which ones to go. But let me know your thoughts. Hit me up on the social media. Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line, voicemail, text message. You can make the show if you want. But let me know who's overseeded, who's underseeded, who did I leave out, what did I get wrong, What do you agree with? Is there anything you agree with? But most importantly, give me those final four predictions. The tournament is going to kick off this Monday, June 24th, with two matchups. The schedule is still being finalized. We're working with CBS and TNT to try to figure out the best way to show these. So stay tuned for that. The brackets will be on my social media. They will also be available wherever you get the podcast. I got to figure, like, you can just rewatch it, pause it. I'm trying to figure out a way to upload the documents and the photos, but they'll be on all of my social medias, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram, on Facebook. I'll have them on my LinkedIn, but you can always just stop and pause. If for some reason you want paper copies of this and you want me to email them to you, let me know and give me your email and I can shoot them over to you. But everything will be available on my social media. The tournament kicks off this Monday on this day in Philly sports history. 2 matchups a day. The schedule is still to be determined. But let me know what you think. Did I get the number 1 seeds right? Is there somebody that you feel should be left out? We didn't have the cameras of some of the crews that were waiting to get in to see their reaction. But let me know your thoughts. Let's have some fun with this. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Let's get this to be bigger than the Lovable Loser tournament we have last year. And again, This Day in Philly Sports History is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. Let everybody know. Subscribe, like, leave comments, and let's make this a great way to spend our summer. But This Day in Philly Sports History Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament kicks off this Monday, only on This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Be sure to vote, spread the word, tell your friends, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.